Thanks, Mona, and thanks, Gary. I learned something there. Fascinating to think about what technology will be there in the future, and makes my mind wonder about how much some of pulling out some of those tiny materials matters at the moment, or does all the tiny materials being pulled out now in aggregate, if we can figure out how to pull them all together, make more sense in the future? Questions. But hey, folks, my name is Byron Kominek, owner and manager of Jack Solar Garden here in Longmont, Colorado. We're in Boulder County. I also direct our nonprofit, the Colorado Agrivoltaic Learning Center, to help teach people about the potential of co-prioritizing land within solar arrays, so it doesn't have to be a barren wasteland like one of those earlier slides that was shown of the massive solar array in California. If you all remember that picture of just solar panels as far as you can see and dirt beneath it. Dirt is dead. There is nothing alive in dirt. Soil is healthy. It has microorganisms in it. It's alive. Dirt, that's just dead. All it does is emit CO2 because it's a bacterial dominated soil, and bacteria reproduce and respire, and that's their sole thing in life. And that respiration process creates CO2. And it always boggles my mind of people destroying land to put up solar panels, when the whole point of solar panels is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, while destroying that land can release more greenhouse gas emissions. So anyhow, I'll get on to different soapboxes as we go, friends. My family has a farm here in Boulder County. It's 24 acres. We're called Jack Solar Garden because my grandfather, Jack there, who was born in 1895, old fella, he farmed this land for the remaining years of his life. He had 120 acres closer to Denver that he farmed for 40 years of his life. Just trying to show that this land that I live on, our farm, has been with our family for 50 years and now is owned by my mother, Eloise. And I've been managing the land and living here for the past 7 years. Over this time frame, we've mainly grown grass. Grass turns to hay. Some people think straw and hay are the same thing. They are not. Straw is the shuff, the byproduct of cereal products like wheat or barley, while hay is just straight grass, different types of grasses mixed with alfalfa sometimes. And we produce hay that we sell off of our farm, and it doesn't pay much. It really doesn't pay much. In Boulder County, if y'all know anything about Boulder, you should think of expensive homes, fancy cars, that sort of thing, pushing edge on technology. It is a rich place. And our 24 acres in Boulder County, we were losing money annually on this farm, and it didn't make sense. And we needed to figure out what else we could do with it. So we took the idea to Boulder County government, saying, hey, put us into a conservation easement, at least let us keep our land, we'll grow grass for you, whatever, just help us make ends meet. They said no, we were too small at 24 acres. They gave options of having free range chickens on the order of 5,000 of them, which y'all imagine chasing around 5,000 chickens. No thanks. They offered up having a Christmas tree farm, which waiting 10 years for revenue wasn't of interest, plus equestrian centers, which nobody rides horses to market anymore. And I had a friend in the solar industry that came out to our land and noticed that we had a 3-phase line on our property, and that it'd be interesting to figure out how to put solar panels on it, because our county has espoused that it wants to be 100% renewable. So it took the idea that Boulder County said, hey, can we put a solar array on our farmland? And they said no. Like, farmland was for farming, so go back to it. We argued with them for quite a while, and they eventually updated and changed their land use code to allow us to build the solar array that I'm going to show you here in 2020. So it took us about 3 years from the concept of this solar array to actually having it energized and producing power. We're coming up on 3 years of producing power and 3 seasons of working with researchers and growing crops underneath our solar panels. And if you drive up to our property, this is the first sign you see, plus our silo behind. But to take you back just before 2020, when we installed the solar array, this is our north pasture. It's 8 acres. We took this land and put in well over 2,400 steel piles, throwing up over 3,276 solar panels that built a 1.2 megawatt DC 960 kilowatt AC system, where the panels take up about 4 acres of land, while the additional infrastructure needed for the solar array take up an additional acre. So hence the 5 acres there. Our panels are elevated to different heights. An eastern portion is flat at about 8 feet, and another portion to the west is flat about 6 feet. So 2 different heights of solar panels here, so we can better learn about how the microclimates created by this single axis tracking system impacts the vegetation, the microclimates beneath them. Single axis tracking simply means that the panels follow the sun from east to west over the course of the day, and that night they go flat, and then they go back to east to west throughout the course of the day. And a solar array like this can produce enough power for about 300 homes in our area. And there you can see what was created. And I was given crap to the other solar array that has dirt beneath it. And the reason why we have dirt underneath our panels here is because it was being ripped and tilled to create crop beds so that we could actually grow vegetables in softer soil. Vegetables do not like compacted soil like grasslands can handle, and you need to decompact it, and the main mechanized way of doing so is tilling, and that's what we did. So there's images of me on a tractor running through along with one of the farm managers from that year, plus compost being provided to on site that was just distributed throughout the solar array. We worked with nonprofit farming organization here in Colorado called Sprout City Farms that's been hiring people for the past few years to actually cultivate different types of vegetables underneath our solar panels using those microclimates. So take a look at that left-hand picture. This is the panels are tilted to the west. So in the afternoon, that bed on the left-hand side is getting shade, while there's 2 other beds in that same row of panels that is getting full sunlight. So one side gets morning sun, one side gets afternoon sun, one side, or the middle, gets the majority of daily sunlight, about 70%. So nowhere gets full sun, nowhere gets full shade. It's just constantly cycling over the field, and that has different impacts on it. Like the lettuce that's getting this afternoon shade when it's 100 degrees outside, it actually tastes sweet, while the lettuce that is on the right-hand side that only gets afternoon sun, and it's really hot out here in Colorado in June and July, it tastes extremely bitter. So we knew from that that variety of lettuce that it would not be advantageous for us to grow it where it gets afternoon sunlight, only in the area where it gets morning sunlight. There's been lots of vegetables. You name the vegetable, and we'll have had some variety of that vegetable on our farm, from carrots, tomatoes, peppers, kohlrabi, kale, corn. For some reason, I always want to say corn, cheese, and lettuce, but no cheese. Radishes, garlic, onions, the whole variety of it has been grown out here. There's been probably like close to 20,000 pounds worth of food grown underneath our solar panels over the past few years. We also work with researchers from the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, Colorado State University, and pictured here students from the University of Arizona to do the analysis of these different types of crops. And what you can see in those images are different wood stakes that delineate where there are different types of varieties being tested. So we know that each crop is different, and then each variety within each crop has different preferences as to its microclimates, as well as to its ability to produce the fruits or produce the leafy greens that we're interested in. So University of Arizona students have been working with us for the past few years, coming out using machinery or using this type of equipment to better understand how the plants are using the sunlight, how efficient they are at different periods during the day, as well as taking an analysis of the amount of fruits being produced. So there's Amy Marble. She's out on our property almost every single day with that smiling face, weighing out how many tomatoes or beans or garlic cloves come off of the different plants that we have. So it's her job to help collect a ton of data and then get sent back to University of Arizona. That is able to, they are in the process of publishing different papers about the results of what they're finding of what types of crops do best in these different areas. At Colorado State University, we have 2 PhD students that are learning more about ecosystem services, or this idea of ecovoltaics, where you can co-prioritize conservation benefits within a solar array. If you just don't screw over the land and you figure out how can you build the solar array to enable different conservation values you can get them. And we're showcasing that at our property. So these students are measuring the amount of soil moisture that is just redistributed from the solar panels onto the ground, so we can learn how that changes throughout the course of the season. They're testing out our dominant grass, which is mountain smooth brome. It's a C3 cool season grass, to see how that fares with the additional shade as well as redistribution of moisture on property. One fun thing that they learned this past season was that we found that we lost about 9% of the total forage being the total amount of biomass grass that could be edible for livestock moving through there. And then we also lost about 5% of the total nutrition of the grass. Now that's, I just said lost twice. So maybe you're thinking, this is a bad thing. Well, think about, I have 100% of the possible renewable energy above ground and 91% of the possible forage below it. That feels pretty good to me. They're doing this is the students there collecting the biomass on different transects within our shorter part of the solar array, so that we can learn more about how it grows. And this year, what they've been doing is figuring out whether or not it's the microclimates of the solar panels providing shade in some places or redistributing water, or is it just the total amount of water that's available to these plants? So they hired an undergrad to go out and basically take Culligan water tanks and dump it on certain areas, so they can see how much does additional water in the ground support additional biomass. We're also working with a company called Wish Garden Herbs that helped advise us on which different types of medicinal herb plants that we could grow that are economical. Here is yarrow, we have silver sage, clary sage. Some of the ladies helping us harvest Monarda flowers. On the left-hand side is an undergrad student. She was the one that was carrying around the Culligan tanks, but she was also working with us in our medicinal herb garden to learn more about how well do these different medicinal herbs grow in our area, figuring out a faster method for harvesting so that we could dry them and see if we can create economic value there, and thereby create a livelihood for someone underneath solar panels harvesting herbs. So they're like, this is creating jobs within solar arrays, where solar companies will just tell you, oh yeah, the jobs are the O&M team. And I'll tell you, my O&M team shows up once every 6 months. That's not a full-time job. These people have full-time jobs underneath the solar panels. And this is my partner and I standing next to motherwort, and behind us, it looks like boneset is in flower. I am about 6'5". You can notice how tall I am in relation to the solar panels. So these panels are elevated higher in the air. Jack Solar Garden supports the arts. We have an Artist on the Farm program each season where we give $1,000 to a different artist to just do something interesting. Now, $1,000 isn't that much, but thankfully we have different artists who have come out to do dance programs, to use old farm materials and turn it into artwork, to having a photographer on the farm, to this year we had a painter on the farm. So that's why the painting picture right there in the middle, she was giving free painting classes to folks. But oftentimes people really love the photographer's pictures, like that bottom right hand picture where there was hired, the photographer hired some artists to come out, and this lady suspended herself from the torque tube of the solar panels. It's all a little bit weird, but that's part of the being trusting and bringing in community into the solar array. It doesn't have to be a neglected space. It can be a space that continues to be used depending on how we build that solar array. But here's a handful of other pictures, just showcasing how we can have arts, have society incorporated within our solar array. I always think that one's fun, of seeing the lady in the red dress over a sea of solar panels. Our nonprofit focuses on the education, on outreach side. We've had well over 1,000 high school students come out to visit us over the past few years to learn more about how we can not stovepipe these two different ideas. We know how to build solar arrays. We know how to have agriculture on different pieces of land. How do we put the two together? Solar companies will often tell you, no, you can't do it. Agricultural people say, nothing grows in the shade. But here it is on our farm. We're able to show that you can have the two together. And we think it's helpful for these students to be able to see that through collaboration, through trust, through long-standing working together, we can figure out how to get the best usage out of our lands. It doesn't just have to be set aside for one thing. All of this helps us build community. We've had multiple events out on our property, over 4,000 people visiting us within our solar array. We've had bluegrass bands, farm to table dinners, fun events for kids like hunting down where the raspberries are, that sort of thing. It's a way that we get to have our community better understand the potential of solar energy, as well as hopefully our companies and our government better understanding that it's not solar or nothing, it's solar and something if you do it right. And now here we're trying to showcase what's possible. So maybe y'all haven't seen chickens in solar arrays. Maybe you haven't seen these two little ducklings or this gosling hanging out in solar arrays before, but we can incorporate animals. But these ones I think are pretty easy because they're fairly small within solar arrays. So what we did was we hired a guy that brought cattle out in our solar array. Colorado is a cattle state. Our country is basically a cattle country. Over 25% of our nation's land is ranch land for cattle. There's over 90 million cattle in our country. I'm trying to say as many C words as I can. A lot of people in the solar industry are using sheep within solar arrays and think that sheep is the future of it. Quick show of hands, friends. How many of you ate lamb this week? How about anybody eat lamb this past month? All right. Anybody? Oh, okay. There we go. We got a couple hands. Anybody eat beef this past week? A few more. Anybody eat it in the past month? So what we try to show is that Americans are typically going more towards beef than we are going towards lamb. I have 6 sheep. I love my sheep. I think they're fun. But I am not getting a high demand for having sheep on for lamb meat. I find that it's pretty cost neutral when I harvest our lamb. Oh, now I'm clicking wrong. There we go. And what I like to do is also share some terminology through our nonprofit. Maybe some of you have heard about dual use solar. In my opinion, dual use solar is anything with solar panels. You could have a beer garden pictured here. You could have a parking lot, bowling alley, tennis court, paintball competition. I don't care. Whatever it is with solar panels. You probably don't want to do a paintball course, but or a gun range with it. But you could do plenty of other things within a solar array. It's just providing double purpose for what those solar panels provide, which is shade. Agri-solar is where you have solar on farmland for assisting with farm purposes. It could be solar on a barn that helps to reduce costs of the farm. It could be a solar panel out in the field that helps pumping water for animals. It could be a variety of things. While agrivoltaics is this co-location of solar with agriculture. It's the solar panels above agriculture. It's the agriculture having some impact by these microclimates that I've already described. And then ecovoltaics is this potential of co-prioritizing these conservation benefits, like having a pollinator habitat within a solar array, or having a healthy grassland, or trying to build a solar array where it doesn't disturb species that we're interested in protecting, because the panels can actually provide shade to them and potentially help reduce the impact from predators on those types of animals. Our nonprofit provides a variety of different types of education. We have on-site workshops. We've done 2 out here this past year. We have three or 4 scheduled for next year. I can't remember offhand. Farm to table dinners. We have webinars. If you're interested in learning more about agrivoltaics, we're doing a monthly webinar series. The next one is October 26th. You can tune in, hear that. It's free, hour and a half. Get to listen to different experts about agrivoltaics and what's possible. And providing experiences as I've described. But in this slide, the bottom 4 are images of videos. I was considering showing some videos because I'm talking for so long today and you're going to get tired of hearing my voice. But maybe after the fact, you want to go and take a look at our website, coagrivoltaic.org, and you're able to take a look at what our harvest season looked like last year, as well as different animations that better describe these microclimates, their impacts on people, as well as vegetation. We identify barriers to be able to let our community know where we have issues. In Colorado, the Community Solar Reward Program has something called a negative REC. A renewable energy credit is a fictitious certificate that different states created to enable, to give it a value to help enable more people being able to transfer into renewable energy. Right now in Colorado, what I've circled there means that renewable energy credit price is negative. That negative price means that instead of getting money for certificates that you produce, you're actually having to pay people to take them away from you. It's this perverse thing that has been set up here in Colorado that shouldn't be the case. If that $34 per megawatt hour translates to 3 cents per kilowatt hour on the minus side, if we had a minimum of $0 per REC in Colorado, that would mean that could be an additional 3 cents per kilowatt hour that would go to ratepayers or towards changing solar array infrastructure into helping out with agrivoltaics. Also, utilities are the main ones that get to pick and choose what solar arrays get built, and their evaluation criteria is completely skewed towards producing cheap power, just like the coal industry, the oil and gas industry have typically done. But they don't consume near as much land as what solar arrays are. There's going to be well over 10 million acres of solar arrays here in the coming decades, and that's a lot of land that is going to be required to get that to happen. But right now, the current evaluation criteria focuses on price, and there's nothing in there about land stewardship, whereas we could ask our public utilities commissions, we could ask our county commissioners and other state officials to push to have land stewardship being a part of that evaluation criteria. And then we have better opportunity of solar developers competing over what types of land stewardship activities they could be doing within a solar array versus just who can build it for the cheapest and who cares about the environmental benefits. As I mentioned, we had cattle underneath our solar panels. We weren't designed for it. We just brought them out there for a few hours to be able to showcase it. But there are other people that are trying to figure out how to put cattle in solar arrays. Once we get a technology that's out there that's able to do this, and if there's any engineers on here, this is a waiting and ready opportunity. I think there are only 2 or 3 racking companies in our country that are predominantly used within all solar arrays. That means the racking company is the structure that holds the solar panels up. So there's very little choice these solar developers have, but people could come in with new choices that could be cheaper. Like if you use steel cable structures to hoist up panels like we do with our bridges, that could be a way of lowering the cost. Grants to land managers, people that have never been in a solar array are not interested in getting involved unless there's some money for them because they don't know how well things are going to grow. And so we need to incentivize both the solar developers as well as the people using the land to help figure out how to do this better. And hopefully over the course of the next 4 or 5 years, people will learn how to do this a lot better, and then we don't have to have such incentives. I already mentioned the ecovoltaic side, but this provides an opportunity to have this multi-functionality of land that maybe land trusts or conservation organizations could get on board with solar companies. So if you can design the solar array for conservation purposes, maybe you can have a land trust that's interested in helping to manage that land or figure out how to get federal or state level tax credits to support any alterations to a solar array. Finally, I think having a third-party agrivoltaic certification process will be huge. We have third-party certifications for a variety of other activities that are supposed to benefit our environment and our farmers and our community at large. Why not have a certification around how well land can be stewarded within solar arrays? There are lots of agrivoltaic systems out there. I'm talking for a colleague at the National Renewable Energy Laboratory now. Across our country. The majority of them, as you can see on here, those little bees, those are pollinator habitat, mainly in Minnesota where they had a little incentive program up there. Pollinator habitats do best where you have rain. In the southwest, western part of the U.S., where we get a quarter as much rain as they do in New York or Virginia, it makes it a whole lot harder to throw out seeds and figure that something's actually going to grow. So that's why we don't have many pollinator habitats where we are in Colorado. Next thing you'll see is a whole bunch of sheep. I already talked some crap about sheep already, but there's a bunch of it on the East Coast. Folks that have been our first adopters of agrivoltaics that did not change anything with their solar array or incorporating sheep into it. And then those little tomatoes are where there's actually crops being grown, and there's very few of those. So we're one of very few locations within our country doing it. But there are places all over the world that are trying to figure this out. There's a map of the countries that I know of that have agrivoltaics in it. This is not a complete list. I also know that there's a few Caribbean countries that are figuring out how to do it. I just had a message from a guy on Reunion Island out in the Indian Ocean saying we got an agrivoltaic system. So there's folks all over the world that are giving it a try. I like to point out Japan. They have, well, the most number of agrivoltaic systems in the world, probably close to 4,000 by now. They're all pretty small. The idea of agrivoltaic started off in Germany. In France, they have wine grapes as well as trees underneath of it. In Italy, they're figuring out how to bring Italian culture into the solar arrays, which I find fascinating. I'm looking forward to seeing how they're doing that. But a lot of folks are elsewhere in the world are figuring out how to grow crops in it, while the US and Australia are mainly focused on sheep at present. This is a couple images, the mushrooms growing underneath solar panels in Japan, and then a vineyard in France underneath solar panels. And if anybody is interested, the World Agrivoltaic Conference, yes, there is one, is having its 4th conference here in Denver, Colorado, June 11th to 13th. And folks will be coming out to visit Jack's Solar Garden as part of that conference. The National Renewable Energy Laboratory has this paper called the 5 C's for Success of Agrivoltaics. So I thought I would share these. How to go about having a project like this that helps to support community, help support such a good land stewardship project from going around. And it really focuses on your climate, configuration, crops, compatibility, and collaboration. Collaboration is where you have all those different partnerships, the different people, like how I talked about all the different researchers that are working with us, as well as nonprofit organizations. I didn't even mention the Audubon Society has been in support of our work by building a pollinator habitat around the perimeter of our solar array. And those are perennials, not annuals, not like just throwing out wildflower seeds. But it really is case by case on land. Almost every farmer and rancher will tell you, like, every landscape is slightly different. You need to manage it slightly different from the landscape before. Solar companies oftentimes struggle with that. They want to take what they've done here and carbon copy it over and over and over again. But being able to figure out how to adapt a solar array to whatever specific problem, whatever specific community, it has a high potential of success for being able to create an agrivoltaic system where we can keep that land working together. Finally, I'll show off some of their images around how people are thinking about putting solar within solar arrays, so putting agriculture within solar arrays. And in the end, what we're trying to do is keep land useful. These are all images from my farm where we have animals and crops growing. I have talked for a while, so that's it for me. If you're looking for more information, it's up on our website. Cheers, friends.